And this is the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the first chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. As soon as Jesus and his disciples left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told Jesus about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons, and the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. The Gospel of the Lord. So doggies, they love routines. And Blake is very good at reminding me when we are not following the routine. Without knowing how to read the clock, at least I don't think he knows how to read the clock, Blake makes it clear that it is time for supper, or it is time for a walk, or it is time for a snack. Of course, he always thinks that it's time for a snack. And over the last several months, Blake has been enjoying the fact that our routines together are even more set than they used to be. For example, since I don't need to be in the office at any particular time in the morning, our morning walks can all be the long walks that we used to only be able to take a couple times a week. And since my evening meetings are all on Zoom, we don't have to have supper at an earlier time so that I can get to the meetings. Our routines don't get disrupted as much. And doggies, they love routines. And honestly, I've been enjoying the routines that Blake and I have, especially in times when the world seems turned upside down. Routines can provide stability, structure, and even comfort. And it's actually been nice to have a few routines like that, which I can settle into these days. And yet, I know that whatever routines I'm in right now are bound to change soon. In fact, one of the lessons of living through COVID is never to get too comfortable with a routine, because the routine will change. Some of those changes that are coming we're all looking forward to, like the changes in routine that will allow us to get back together in person without fear of catching or spreading a virus. Some of those changes we may not look forward to, especially if those changes involve the permanent loss of things we used to do. And some of those changes are kind of frankly scary, because it's not at all clear exactly how our routines are going to be different a year from now. And so it can really be easy to want to settle in, at least for now, with a few comfortable routines. I mean, I feel like that all the time. I suspect many of you do as well. And even I get the sense that Jesus' first disciples were feeling that way in today's gospel reading. Mark's gospel rolls kind of quickly, so if you don't be careful, you miss it, but already a routine seems to have been developing in Jesus' ministry. Jesus went to the synagogue and he taught. He healed a man possessed by demons, and his fame spread throughout Galilee. Then he went for dinner at Simon's house, where he healed Simon's mother-in-law of a fever. Later, more people showed up and he healed them, and his fame spread some more. So early the next morning, the disciples could already see a routine was developing. And it was a pretty good routine. They were at home, surrounded by family and friends, where they had good support. Jesus was doing great things for people, and his fame was spreading. So why not set up shop here and do this for a while? This was a good routine. It seems like that's the thought when Simon finds Jesus and says, "Hey, everybody's looking for you. We've got a good routine going here. Let's get back to it. But Jesus disrupts the routine. Let us go on to the neighboring towns, he says. And just like that, the comfortable routine is upended. Jesus won't be constrained by the routine, and he intends to bring his disciples along for the ride. And like the first disciples, sometimes we need Jesus to drag us out of our comfortable routines. But right now, I don't feel like I need Jesus' help to do that. I mean, life and the world around me is doing just a fine job of that. Thank you. And you're probably in the same situation. But there's something deeper going on here than just Jesus not settling into a routine. And while the disciples may not have appreciated being dragged along to new places and out of their own comfortable routines, inherent in Jesus' call is the promise that Jesus will be leading them into new and different routines, even if those routines aren't clear right now. I mean, surely they weren't. They didn't know what exactly Jesus had in mind. But he's not asking them to go where he won't go. He's not telling them, well, you know what? You guys go over there. He says, come with me. I'm going to be there leading you. And whatever the routine is from here on out, Jesus will be leading them into it. They don't have to go it alone. Inherent in Jesus' call is the promise that there is hope and promise beyond the comfortable routines of right now. Jesus calls the disciples out of the routine because there is a bigger future ahead. This is what I came out to do. I came to do this not just for people here, but for people all over the place. This is bigger and more complex, more important, and actually more exciting than you used to think. This is, after all, Jesus calling the disciples to change the routine not for the sake of change, but because there is hope and promise ahead. And he helps them see that right from the very beginning. And inherent in Jesus' call is the promise that Jesus will always be with his disciples, guiding and empowering them as they learn to live in new ways and live into constantly changing routines. Because in fact, just like we deal with COVID, there was always a new routine. There was the new routine as they learned to follow Jesus around Galilee. And then there was a new routine as they headed to Jerusalem. And then everything just fell apart. And then after the resurrection, there was a new routine after that. But you know, every time there's a new routine, Jesus promises that they're not going to go it alone. He is going to continue to be with them, even after the resurrection. This is not good luck, I know you can handle it. This is, I'm going to be with you always, helping you through these new routines. Those were always the promises Jesus made, and made good on, whenever he called his first disciples to follow and to change their routines. Those are the same promises that Jesus makes to us as well. As we live into these next weeks and months, our routines will surely have to change some more. Sometimes those changes in routine will be forced upon us by the way life is in the world around us. Sometimes those changes in routine will happen because of changes in our personal lives unrelated to COVID. And sometimes we may feel God's call to change, even when we don't want to. But however our routines must or ought to change, Jesus' promises to us are the same. No matter how the routine changes, Jesus promises to lead us in new ways of living, even when the new routines aren't clear, and sometimes even if we resist the change. I mean, we're just going to have some new routines that we all know are going to come upon us, and sometimes we resist those. And I started by saying that Blake loves routines, and he does love the routine of the longer walk, but he gets bored sometimes on the longer walk, and there have been times when I've been walking him and he just stops. And it's like, nope, we're going that way. And I'm like, nope, we're continuing this way, the way we've always gone. Nope, we're going that way. And sometimes I've let him do this. He has dragged me into all kinds of new neighborhoods that I have never been in before. And it's actually been kind of cool. There are new sights for me and new smells for him. And as we've done that, I've thought, you know, this is sometimes the way Jesus has to work in my life too. I got a plan. I'm going to go this way. This is what we're going to do. And Jesus is like, nope, nope, got to go do this now. And I'm like, no, Jesus, I don't, yep, doing this. And it's after I get into the routine that I realize, you know what? This really was God calling me to live in a new way. And Jesus does that for us all the time, where not just for the sake of change, but Jesus is calling us to say, think about another possibility. That's often what Jesus is doing in our lives. And Jesus is promising always to lead us, even at those moments when we say, gee, I'm really comfortable in this routine right now. No matter how the routine changes, no matter whether we want it to or not, Jesus always promises also to show us hope and promise in the midst of the change in the routine. You know, that's the way it's been for us already. We have learned to see hope and promise in some of the ways that we've had to change our routines. We've learned to live in new ways, at school, at home, at the office, at church even. We've been able to learn some new ways, and sometimes people have said, hey, wait a minute, there is something to this work at home stuff. If you can do it, it actually makes life less stressful and even more productive. There is some hope and promise there. And the other day we were having a conference meeting with the pastors in Montgomery County, and a bunch of us were talking about the number of people that we're now able to reach because we do online things that we were not able to reach before, and how we're going to continue to do that even after we're back live and in person. People that are physically unable to gather with us. People that are on vacation, people that live all over the world. Some of you right now are watching this, and you don't live in Montgomery County, which is great, because there is hope and promise to the change in routine. Jesus always showed that to his first disciples, and he's showing it to us as well. And no matter how our routines change, or whether we're willing to do them or not, or sometimes having to be dragged out of them, Jesus promises always to be with us to help us manage these new routines. You know, Jesus never told his disciples, just suck it up, you're going to be fine. He always helped them and guided them in learning to live in those new ways. He was always with them. And Jesus is always with us, helping us to learn, to grow, and to adapt. That was the promise Jesus always made to his disciples. He always made good on it. That's the promise Jesus has always made to us. He's always made good on it, and he always will. So, you know, sometimes I love my routines. Sometimes I look forward to new routines, and sometimes I get dragged out of my routines before I'm ready. But whether the routines are good or bad, whether they last or not, Jesus' promises to us are the same. Jesus promises always to lead us forward, even when the new routine isn't yet clear to us. Jesus promises to show us hope and promise, even when we've been comfortable in the old routines. And most importantly, Jesus promises always to walk with us in whatever routine we find ourselves in, to give us strength and courage and stamina to continue to live into the life to which God calls us.